I'll start by, telling a little bit about our story. We started this summer, this past summer, and it was sort of came out of a series of discussions that I was having with some of my friends, Robert, my friend Alex, who's in New York, and we were talking about democracy. And at the same time, we were starting to identify that we had this incredible amount of spare time, that after we checked out at work, we started playing video games. And we found that this spare time could really be something powerful, that we might have an opportunity here to put in some real work and do something. So we knew that there was going to be a lot of attention around the '08 elections and that we can in some way piggyback off of that. So we want to get involved there, but we sort of come from different political stripes. And so it wouldn't be involved with a campaign. It would be something else. So we decided that we would start by looking into the heart of democracy in America. And we spent a month just doing flat research, looking into journal articles, studies, whatever's out there, and starting to deeply understand the nuances of civic behavior in the country today. And at the time, Alex, who was one of the founders, was in Europe. And Robert and I started telling our friends about this, and people are like, I don't even know what you're talking about. What's this internet thing? And then we're like, we just start cranking, and our friends stop seeing us, and we're just working pretty much all the time. And so part of our story is that we started to identify, the things became clear of what it would take for this project to go. And each one of those things was something we would be taking on for the first time, having very little experience in almost anything. So the first task was to incorporate. So what we did was, this one. Robert got one of his lawyer friends at law school, who is a professor, and she helped us incorporate. We incorporated in Massachusetts, and then we filed for a 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit status with the IRS. And I'll get back to that, sort of the thinking behind that, why we are a nonprofit, why we think that's important. Actually, that was a whole trip that sort of sidetracked our organization, and that the IRS mismanaged our application and it got lost and it was sort of in a black hole, and actually had to get my congressperson to come in and sort of advocate for us to pull it out. But we just recently got our 501c3, so we are official. There will be a collection plate going around, so feel free to put change in it. I'd say next was we had to build a website. And I think I had the most experience on the team as having used Blogger before, and that was really not any sort of technical expertise that would go to anything here. So we looked around us and did a deep search, and I got my roommate and my friend's roommate to do it. And those are the first 2 paid contracts, and only paid contracts, of Glassbooth, which is also part of our story of how we got this done. 3, we had to spread the word. We had to get this thing out there. And we had to do it in a way that reached the right people, reached the most people, because we really think it's something for everyone, and something that was cheap, most importantly. And then 4, we had to find money. And just coming a little bit from the nonprofit world, this is the worst part about being in the nonprofit world. If any of you have worked in the nonprofit world, nobody likes to ask for money. They feel like somebody's doing a favor for them. That's why everybody's looking for a development consultant to come in, and there's no one out there because people don't go generally into that work to ask people for money. And we also realize there's sort of a shortcoming of the whole nonprofit world, and it's all tied to short-term grants. And if you want to do something with long-term impact, when your grants expire every year, you end up devoting way too many of your resources to doing development, not enough to doing content. So our challenge was to do traditional fundraising, but also to think of creative ways to bring in interesting revenue streams. But we learned very quickly that from the start, without anything to show people, it was going to be very difficult to raise money. So we had to go just to our family and friends and start shaking down our grandparents for whatever money they could and asking everybody to chip in any way they could. And really that is actually what it took to get the thing off the ground. Pretty much that list became departments of what you would call Glassbooth. At this point, we have a handful of people working for us. And I think something started there where we said, wouldn't it be cool if there was a website that did this, which is help people express their beliefs and then find out those of the presidential candidates. I don't think at the time that we had any idea what that meant for our lives going forward and how much work that would be and sort of the effort. In particular, the research. I'll speak real briefly about. What we had proposed to do was lay out the issues, lay out 16 candidates at the time across 90 issues. So if you do the math, with several pieces of information for each candidate's position on stance, each piece of information handpicked and verified, you're talking about an incredible task in a very short amount of time to go out there and pull together the public record of all these candidates. I don't know if this picture comes up. No. So 3 main ways that we accomplish this. One is as a nonprofit, or we had anticipated to be a nonprofit, pro bono services. We can't afford legal. We can't afford PR. We can't afford any type of consulting. But what we can do is tell you that if we do get our 501c3, you can write off your services to us. So with that, we ended up pulling in one of the biggest law firms around to represent us. We ended up getting consulting help from a really elite consulting firm in New York City. And although we had no income and weren't working too hard on fundraising at the time, we were receiving tens of thousands of dollars of service for free. Another way we did it is really reaching out to our network and tapping into our friends' spare time that we had now capitalized on. And what we found is people wanted to get involved. If they weren't doing something with their day job that they felt was inspiring in any way, if we could tell them that this was, and we could prove to them that this was something important, we found people are willing to devote their time to do something if they're inspired. So I think at different times we've had over 40 volunteers working on Glassbooth. And those are people right around our network, or we get on conference calls and work with them. The third way is really, it was an extraordinary effort, and I know everyone here works very hard. I was trying to think of a good anecdote to really express how hard we work. I mean, Robert pulled several all-nighters in a row, drug-free, which was great, and our parents start worrying about us. Our health is in decline. And I think we kept telling ourselves that this is really a public service, that this work we put in now will pay off later, plus we do it for the public. And we hope, we really believe that. And that's sort of what got us through those difficult times, I would say.